Cyril Ramaphosa has just concluded a media briefing following his budget vote speech in Parliament this afternoon. He touched on a number of burning issues affecting the country. Lindsay Dentlinger in Parliament to unpack what he said for us. Lindsay, hi there. So let's start with the issue of the health minister. And of course, the president is already on record saying he wants to wait for the SIU to finish its probe into Digital Vibes, a contract that we already know has been declared irregular. Did he give anything more in this media briefing?
Well, Sally, you can imagine there were several questions surrounding this matter. As you said, he also responded to it in his budget address yesterday. But really the upshot is asking South Africans to trust him on this issue, trust that he is handling it, that he's dealing with it, that Minister Kize is being responsive and cooperating with this investigation. And the president saying that, he wouldn't just act until there was, concrete information before him. He was specifically asked whether he didn't think that the minister should either be suspended or put on a leave of absence during this time, and whether he thought that the allegations around the minister could be seen to now taint the vaccination program. But the president saying he was satisfied with the steps that he was taking. South Africans had to trust that he was taking the correct steps, and that he deemed the allegations as very serious and very disturbing, but it was under control. And so until such time as the SIU makes some concrete finding, which we expect to be by the end of the month, no further action would be taken against the health minister.
Staying in the realm of health, we know that COVID-19 cases are on the increase. Gauteng is of particular concern. And that leads us, of course, to really grave worries about the state of our hospitals here. We're looking at failing infrastructure and hospitals just not looking in good shape to cope. What was said around COVID-19, whether it's what's going on in Gauteng, the vaccination program, restrictions, that sort of thing?
Not too much, Sally. Those weren't any questions asked specifically around the handling of the vaccination program. But he was asked about lockdown, ongoing lockdown decisions taken with regard to that, and he said that the powers of Parliament. He didn't see that the powers of Parliament was being usurped in this matter, and that decisions to continue with lockdowns and whatever level they were going through a number of processes, through a number of bodies, the cabinet dealing with it, also his coronavirus command council, also the presidential council, which contains premiers. So he felt that it was unfair for opposition parties who challenged him yesterday about too much power being vested in the Cooperative Governance Minister, and that the Disaster Management Act needs to be amended, saying that these decisions weren't just taken willy-nilly. It wasn't just taken by one or two people. They were well advised by the Medical Advisory Council, and so Parliament had its own role to play and could conduct oversight at any time as to how government was handling this pandemic. Inevitably,
the issue of load shedding came up, and Eskom as well. Tell us what he said.
Well, the president again reaffirming his faith that he has in Eskom, saying he believes that there's a very good management at the helm. He was asked to put his head on a block as to when load shedding would end. He was reminded of promises he made years back, every time giving another a timeline for the end of load shedding. But the president was saying that what is happening at present had nothing to do with ill management, mismanagement of any malfeasance of any kind, but that we just had to understand that this was something that is a long time coming. We know that the power utility is battling ailing infrastructure and managing to maintain it, and so the president didn't commit once again as to when the end of load shedding was coming, when load shedding would come to an end, but saying again that not only Eskom but all SOEs, again saying South Africans have to trust that there are good people at at the helm, that they've got corruption under control, that they are dealing with these issues, and that there is light at the end of the tunnel. Turnaround plans are in place, and particularly as regard Eskom, he was satisfied with those at the helm that they were getting the power utility on the right track despite the load shedding.
The issue of land came up as well. We know that earlier this week an important deadline was missed, and that is regarding an agreement around the wording of the Constitution to change it to allow for land expropriation without compensation. The ANC and the EFF, who would have to form that two-thirds majority, differing over the issue of the role of the courts. Did the President signal any concern about how long this issue has taken, or did he say anything that may suggest the two parties are going to battle to reach a deal?
So, Sally, just to take a step back, maybe just to a little bit earlier in the day, as you've pointed out, that deadline missed for that ad hoc committee to table a report to Parliament. For that very reason you mentioned, the ANC and EFF not coming to an agreement as to what that wording should look like and the role of the courts, particularly in land expropriation matters. And so what we know is that tomorrow Parliament is most likely going to be asked to extend the tenure of that ad hoc committee once again, by my account, for the fourth time, at least until the end of August. Even though they had asked only for a 30-day extension, we understand that the request will be made for it to be extended until the end of August. But back to your question, yes, the President asked several questions about the land issue and his views on state custodianship, which we know is a position held by the EFF, and the President saying in so doing it would strip people of the entrepreneurial spirit. People needed to know that they had tenure of land, that they had a title deed, that they had possession of land for them to work that land optimally, and also for them to be able to obtain loans, to get water licenses and a whole host of other things. They needed to have some control over land. So he was very careful not to support this idea of this state custodianship, but saying that he believed that they would come to some agreement sometime soon. As we know, the EFF needs, the ANC needs the EFF to be on board, because this constitutional amendment would require a two-thirds majority in Parliament to pass it. So this matter of land expropriation without compensation, the role the courts should or should not play, the President saying it was almost nonsensical to think that the courts should be eliminated from this process completely, because that is how our democracy is designed, for people to seek recourse in the courts. And so for the position held by the EFF that the courts play no role whatsoever in terms of determining any form of compensation. Of course, we know that they believe that there should be no compensation, even if that compensation is deemed to be null. The President saying here this afternoon that it would probably not be a workable solution to try to exclude the courts completely from having a say in these matters, should there be no agreement on land expropriation without compensation.
Thank you so much. Lindsay Dentlinger there, coming to us live from Parliament. Still to come.